Howdy folks, today we're going to talk about the Letshuoer Cadenza for a 4-driver hybrid, which I actually really enjoy, which is why I'm doing a review. Yay. Yay for actually liking IEMs. So, what's special about these guys that makes them something that I would rather recommend and do a review about? Well, a couple things. Just to rattle off a few things. So they have a Beryllium coated dynamic driver for bass. They have a Sanyan, I think one Sanyan BA for mids and two nulls for like ultra treble and air stuff above 10K. And I find the Beryllium coated driver on these actually quite spectacular. Has a really nice amount of air, slam, texture, not too much, not too little. It's kind of like in that Goldilocks zone. And it also allows you to EQ up the bass if you're a bass head type of person. So you could, in theory, buy these and bass them up if you felt like you wanted to, EDM, rap, those type of genres, or just chill back with no EQ and actually get a rather audiophile replay. Very, very nice. Some of the best bass I've heard in a long time. I think they probably match a lot of the stuff that's really high priced. Nozzle here is about 6.6 millimeters, so it's a little bit thick. These are Hager's 3D printed resin. I find them not annoying or anything, kind of professional looking. I probably prefer clear, but I mean, who wouldn't? Probably boost the cost. And they're light and well built and all those kind of things, so I think they would last somebody a while. Cable is actually very nice. I like this better than like the S12 cables. A lot of the more low-end Letshuoer cables are a little bit thicker, not as subtle. Oh, my camera just decided to go crazy on the white balance. Anyway, but I like this cable a lot, and it's modular, and we have these guys here and stuff like that. All right, camera, relax. Okay, so let's go over to some stuff. We have a graph right down here, and just to go over a few things, we have 7 something decibels of ear gain starting a little bit forward at about 2.2K. We have about 8 point something decibels of subs starting around 200 hertz. So very clean mid shelf and mid bass shelf, low ear gain area, and sort of natural-ish treble. We have our little coupler peak at 8K, so I'm imagining this gonna goes like this roughly. So the sort of high treble is about equal to the mids, and then we roll off in a rather natural fashion. So if I had to call this tuning something, I would call it certainly not Harmon. I don't know what the heck I'd call it, honestly. I mean, that maybe looks like a W, I guess. I don't know. So those words don't matter. What matters is how it sounds. And it sounds a little bit mid-forward and is a relaxing, chill listen with incredibly good low end, and that you can EQ up. So over here we have Letshuoer's webpage, $200, which is on sale from $250, which is another reason I'm bringing this up. And they have some other things here that we could talk about. I don't know if any of this matters that much. But again, I really do like the quality of this Beryllium coated dynamic driver, 10 millimeter. Fantastic. So yeah, one Sanyan, two nulls BAs. I'm guessing the Sanyan is for mids. Sounds like it to me. And that's pretty good. And again, nice cable, which is not that cable. Interesting. Well, whatever. All right, so I have some notes here. We already talked about all this. So they are 15 ohm right around here. And just to mention this, 102 decibel sensitivity per milliwatt. So that means they're not incredibly sensitive. And also, if you divide 15 by 8, I don't know, we're talking maybe about 2.5 ohm max output impedance of your device so that they won't mess up the tonality. Just also to mention, I did actually try an impedance adapter on these, and it did nothing good. Absolutely nothing. It increased the bass a little bit and just rolled the treble off to nowhere land. So don't even bother with that. Some IEMs will bass up. This one didn't. I don't like it. Talked about all this. Yep, fairly classy, cool. Not Harmon tuning. Low ear gain, 6.8 decibels. It comes across a little bit flat, sort of studio monitor-ish, for lack of a better word, natural-ish, clean sounding, relatively decent wide soundstage, but definitely a mid-centric set overall. And it doesn't really go for like a top-of-the-line, sort of the classic, like The-Audio, really super ultra double clear pushed treble that only works for some genres or really super well mixed tracks. That's not this pair. It's a more chill, sublime listen on the organic and natural side, studio monitor-ish. Moving on to bass, I actually love the bass driver on this. Again, you can EQ it. It's very tight, it's very controlled, has a really nice amount of texture, good separation left to right, all those type of things that make a driver really good. And again, beryllium coated, very, very, very tight and textured, and there's no slop factor with that. Some of the best bass I've actually heard in forever. And for a hybrid at $199, that's a hell yes. It's probably one of the best basses you can get at $199 for the actual, not so much the amount of it, but just the quality of it. Yeah. So mids, moving on, we're going to give the mids an 8 out of 10. They are a little bit slightly forward. Talking about right over here, we have the 2.2-ish K peak, so they a little bit forward. And so really what that comes across is, like a lot of tracks, the vocals will pop forward pretty well. Male vocals, female vocals all pop sort of into the center of your focus on a lot of tracks. Also, other instruments in that range really pop as well. I really like the mids on these. I think they're, the Sonian sort of mids, but really like them. A little bit of bounced armature flare, a little bit of extra textures maybe compared to a dynamic driver, but 8 out of 10, really, really nice. Also, high mids can get a hair hot with some tracks and a lot of volume right there. I'm suspecting that's maybe around the, 3.5, 4K area, possibly. Not entirely sure, but just a little hot, just to mention that on some stuff, and I run volume really high, so we're talking above 90 decibels for sure. And moving on to treble, we're going to give it an 8 out of 10. So it's going to be slightly above neutral natural, but not really much more than that. So certainly not the sort of typical top-of-the-line type of boosted treble. Has some reasonable sparkles, reasonably extended all the way to it is about 12, 13K. Cool. No peaks and no odd timbre characteristics of the treble, so I like it a lot. So moving on to some more esoteric things. Stage wideness, we're going to give a 7.5 out of 10. And you might say, well, that's not wonderful, but it is actually quite 3D. So if you move down from that a little bit, 3D is going to be an 8.5 out of 10, meaning that it may not be quite as wide as the widest things on the planet, but it's going to have a nice amount of like height, I suppose people call it, and it wraps around a little bit around the head, and it feels viscerally fleshed out. So you can, there's different layers of sound that these produce, and they're fairly distinct and separated. So 7.5 out of 10 wideness. Imaging, we're going to give 7.5 out of 10 as well. Not laser precise, not diffuse entirely, somewhere in the middle of that. Dig it, works well for the tuning. Again, it's a sublime, relaxed type of replay. And also, just to mention this, like there's some IEMs in the $500 range that I find have worse imaging than these. So these are, while not the best, they're quite good. And 3D, 8.5 out of 10. And it's a little bit of the forward mids on these, but because that's not scooped out in a way that a lot of other sets are, these really do produce some 3D effects that you won't find on a more V-shaped set in the mid-range. So that's good stuff, man. And it's not a really unlike tunings that I try for myself at all. In fact, it's very, very similar. And volume scaling, we're going to give an 8 out of 10. Just a couple tracks got hot in the high mids and really loud. You could probably get away with like medium high to high volume for many, many things on this. Would you want to? I don't know. But, it's possible. It's not going to peak or be weird or fatiguing in those ways. And moving on to music replay. So blues was excellent overall. It has just the right amount of low end, little, that smoky sort of atmosphere going on. Rycooter, for example, was really absolutely excellent on these. Just super good. Also, Rycooter is mixed extremely well, so, a little bit of that. But mids on these did blues really a lot of justice. And then moving on to classical, absolutely excellent, nice clean mids and high bass shelf with enough thickness to sound not analytical but natural. It doesn't really feel like the mids are sucked out of these, which is actually, I think it's because of the low ear gain area, but it does not come across as like a sucked out typical Chi-Fi mid set. So I like it a lot. Classical, excellent. Mids do the work on a lot of acoustic instruments, things like that. Disco, Disco, absolutely excellent. I thought maybe that since it's a little mid forward, that might come across a little bit too hard, too heavy on Disco, but no, that really just made me want to sing along. Kool and the Gang Celebration was absolutely fantastic. Volume scaling, you can run it pretty high, get your groove on with Disco. These are great. Electronica, excellent for the most part. Now, I would say that I feel like these aren't necessarily in the stock tuning the best electronica type thing. So typically electronica, you want a little bit of push treble, just a little bit, nice bombastic bass. And probably a little extra mids, actually, because a lot of electronica is V-shaped mixing. A couple of tracks had some hotness to the high mids and treble, but if you wanted to punch up some EQ on the bass on these guys, and it's just wham, man, amazing, and I actually enjoyed it a lot. I'm nitpicking a little bit, but excellent for the most part. So electronica is recommended. The Beryllium coded dynamic driver just awesome. Nice extension, everything. Good mojo for that. I think people will get down on it. Moving on to jazz, it just absolutely excellent. And stuff like the, what am I trying to say? Those stand-up bass, really nice amounts of air, and that thump factor with this was just fantastic. Absolutely love it. Mids full-bodied, bold, a little bit forward. Mel Torme, I generally don't like the mixing on that much, was fantastic on these. So jazz is excellent. See how this is going? Really good. So then we're going to get on to something that everyone's going to immediately ask, metal. So we're going to call it good, bordering on great, not excellent, not the best ever, but good. And so what that means to me is if I am randomly switching around with tracks and I get some metal stuff going on, I'm not flipping the track. I'm going to enjoy it. It's good. I would like a little more mid-bass to really fill out the sound signature. But again, there's a compromises. You do that, other things like classical aren't going to come across quite as good. Female vocals may get a little husky, things like that. Metal's its own problem, we'll call it. But overall, these are very good for metal, and I believe most people would enjoy them, all the way from like the less hard styles to like grindcore and things like that. Grindcore was just a wee bit much in the upper mids, but not enough to where it bothered me, and not enough to where I'm going to flip the track. So overall, would listen and be happy. It metals, killer. R&B, absolutely amazing. Again, more bass EQ for more smash. Mids do the vocals perfectly. Just everything Sade, Madonna, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Rap was amazing. Run the Jewels, nice low end for the bass. The drops, fantastic. So excellent. Moving on to reggae, and that's actually, I don't know, maybe the worst thing about this, which was still really very good. Excellent low end. Reggae is all about vocals, and these are absolutely vocal forward, and in just a little bit over the top in some things. But just pull the volume back a little bit, and you got it going on. It had like a lot of reggae. You can really hear the bass guitars. A lot of that stuff was mixed old. So it doesn't have a tremendous amount of subs. It's going to be more mid-bass focused, and these actually did really nicely with that. So just to mention, so they go for a lot of different eras of reggae, shall we say, all the way from like late 60s to the 90s, where you have a lot more subs and that type of thing going on. Yeah, and also just to mention, snares got to me a little bit loud on some tracks because probably the mids are just so MIDI. All right, moving on to rock and classic rock. Good to decent. Would prefer a little bit more mid-bass, and that's probably the one genre where you may notice that. It keeps those kick drums going, keeps the guitars in check with a little more grunt in the bottom end, less sizzle, stuff like that. Big Sugar, Kickin' Stones usually has a little bit more low end on a lot of things that I've heard. Go look up that track. It's killer, man. Absolutely amazing guitar tones. But it didn't sound anemic and it didn't bother me, so, just to mention. Soundtracks, absolutely excellent overall. Nice epic feeling to tracks that are mixed like that. OSTs are usually produced super well, and this IEM showed it off super well as well. Good 3D, which goes hand in hand with like the epic style, sort of big, deep sound. The Lord of the Rings soundtrack had the proper epic feeling, instruments, all that stuff. Just really, really nice. Vaporwave was excellent, great 3D, great volume scaling. Imaging is good enough for some nice effects and tracks. I have heard better, but it didn't bother me, and there's a lot of Vaporwave that really appreciates a little bit extra mids. In those mids, you find some extra 3D effects, so these did a really wonderful job. And Vintage and Lounge, like Buena Vista Social Club, absolutely amazing. Excellent vocals, all that stuff, 3D sound, it's going on. So, in conclusion, we have a mid-centric set, which is one of the first I've heard in a long time. Also, just for mid-centricness that I really, really enjoyed. Usually it's very hard to pull that off and get the right balance of things. Slightly forward ear gain, 2.2K. I have actually been tuning very similar to this recently, and to be honest with you, although I do really like it a lot, and it's very good for a huge amount of genres, a large amount of music, it pulls it off really well. I still, for my own set, wanted to pull that forwardness back a little bit, whereas this, I think, just sort of dived into it in a really nice way. So just to mention, I love it. There's nothing wrong with that. This is, preferences for tuning, shall we say. And again, it's rare that you have a set that really works for all genres. Some better than others, but really this is an all-arounder that I think a lot of people would really love. And again, the heart of the music is very strong in this, the mids, man. Mids. And bass, extraordinary. I did a little bit of bass heading on it, EQ'd that up, and it was just like, holy shit, that is some amazing, huge bass. And I say, like, it comes across better even just having one dynamic driver versus a lot of the two dynamic driver sets I've heard recently. And I hate to say it, but I have Australia right here, Zigat, Jay's Australia. These actually sound better in bass to me, probably because the Australias have a little bit too much, and it becomes a little bit bloaty and woofy, whereas these are tight, controlled, and resonant. So I like that better. And these are recommended. $199, go get yourself a pair, man. They're right up there with the Oxygens, the Hannas, all the best things that I've heard at $199, which tend to be dynamic drivers, and this is a hybrid that I actually love. So amazing. It's been a long time since I've heard a Letshuoer that was really, really good. And also, what is up with Letshuoer? That is just the weirdest name ever. I like shower. I'm saying it totally wrong. It's Letshuoer. Shower. But it's just weird. They have some weird aesthetics going on. Right on, and talk to you on the next one.